I'll be fine, Kendra, I promise. Kendra stood by the door of McKay's hospital room, and she instantly felt the air charge around her. Fear replaced relief. He smiled, and Kendra felt the fear blossom inside of her. McKay's arms opened to her, and she quickly grabbed the invitation. She gently placed her tote bag on a table, then hurried forward, burying her face in his familiar chest. Memories flooded her as she breathed in his scent that was slowly getting overwhelmed by the dreary smell of sickness. She felt tears rushing to her eyes, threatening to fall, and it was all she could do to fight them back. There was a baby to think about now. She took in a breath meant to fortify her, but it only pushed in more of the dark scent that seemed to billow around her sick boyfriend now. What would she do about the baby? How would McKay react, knowing that he was inches away from death and she was hosting a baby, his baby, inside of her? Finally, the tears did fall onto McKay's chest as she thought of raising the child alone 7 months from now. Her boyfriend would be long gone by then, crushed permanently under the colon cancer that was eating away at him. Pulling on all the strength she had left, she moved away from him and folded her arms against her chest. "I'm sorry about the tears. I won't make it a habit." He smiled. "Promise me that anytime you need someone to lean on, you'll call me." Kendra snorted, wiping away her tears with the back of her hand. "If anyone here needs leaning on, it's you." McKay rolled his eyes, even though the movement appeared sluggish. "I am fine, Kendra." She sighed, evading his statement. What did the doctor say, then? She watched him swallow hard. "The doctor said my next chemo session is coming up on Friday. We'd need to pay for that as soon as possible." His voice trailed off meaningfully. Kendra nodded. "I'll source for the money, my love. You do not have to worry at all." "How will you find the money?" McKay asked. His voice sounded even more broken than ever. Kendra managed to summon up a smile that didn't reach her heart. She made a show of tucking his blanket around his body, fighting off a fresh wave of tears that burned the back of her eyes. "I will," she started, "probably take another loan. I am sure the hospital can spare another one for me. After all, I have been working with them for years now." "Is it that easy?" he asked, his icy blue eyes darkening with apprehension. "You owe them what, $15,000 already?" Kendra said nothing, only busied herself with her boyfriend's blanket. She did not want him to see the look of despair and hopelessness that had settled in her eyes, did not want him to worry as much as he was currently doing. She leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to McKay's forehead, her lips lingering for a moment before she pulled away. "I love you, McKay," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "And you do not have to worry about the money. I will do everything I can to make sure I find the money and get you through this successfully." McKay managed a weak smile, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and resignation. "I know you will, Kendra," he replied softly. "Hell, I do not deserve you." Those tears threatened to spill from Kendra's eyes again, but she blinked them back, forcing herself to stay strong for McKay. She straightened up and smoothed down the wrinkles in his blanket, tucking it snugly around him once more. As she turned to leave, a sudden impulse seized her, and she hesitated by the door. Should she tell him about the baby now? It felt like the right moment, a moment of truth, and perhaps a bit of vulnerability between the both of them, but a voice inside her warned against it, urging her to wait for a better time. He might not be able to handle the news, knowing fully well that he might not live to see his child. She did not want to make him more miserable than he already was. Taking a deep breath, Kendra pushed the thought aside and plastered on a smile. "I'll see you soon, okay?" she said, her voice cheerful but tinged with sadness. McKay nodded, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. "Yeah, soon," he murmured, his gaze following her as she walked out of the room. Alone in the hallway, Kendra leaned against the wall, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. She felt torn between the overwhelming urge to confide in McKay and the fear of burdening him with more worry. With a heavy heart, Kendra made her way to the hospital's front office, her mind racing with thoughts of how to come up with the money for McKay's next chemo session. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to do whatever it took to ensure his treatment continued. Irene, the front office nurse, gave her a bright smile as she walked in. Kendra was a regular face in the hospital, partly because she worked there herself. "Kendra," Irene called out. "It's been a hot while." Kendra wanted to inform the woman that she was here just yesterday, but kept shut. She had other pressing matters to attend to. Plastering a smile on her face, she replied, "Oh, there's work, and McKay." Irene nodded vigorously. Of course. I can't blame you after all. Who else to take care of him other than you, his girlfriend after all?" Placing a hand on Kendra's shoulder, Irene continued, "By the way, you look like death. Watching over your sick boyfriend doesn't mean you shouldn't take care of yourself, "I am aware, Irene." Kendra sighed irritably, "But all of that is not why I am here." Irene's gray eyes narrowed, and she jerked her hand away as though Kendra's shoulder was a cactus. "What is it then?" "May you send a message to Dr. Turner?" Kendra asked. "I'll write a note." "Sure." Irene fished for a notepad from her drawer, alongside a pen, and tore a leaf from it. She pushed it across the counter towards Kendra. Silently, Kendra scribbled a quick note to Dr. Turner. She signed it off, folded the note, and gave it back to Irene. "Tell him to call me the moment he gets this." "Of course," Irene chirped. Without another word, Kendra walked away with her tote bag over her shoulder. A few meters away, she turned to see Irene reading her note with a disdainful wrinkle of her nose, oblivious to the fact that Kendra had caught her in the act. Kendra felt her skin crawl with fury, but she kept silent and walked away. All for McKay, she thought. This was all for McKay. Hours later, she sat at her desk in the hospital's pediatric unit where she worked, poring over financial reports and brainstorming fundraising ideas. Despite her exhaustion, she refused to give up hope. Suddenly, her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. She picked up the phone and saw that it was Dr. Turner, McKay's oncologist. With bated breath, Kendra picked the call. "Hello, Dr. Turner." "Miss Clinton," Dr. Turner replied in his deep Southern accent. "I got your message from Irene. How are you doing today?" "I am very well, Dr. Turner, thanks." Kendra rubbed a sweaty palm against her thigh. Did you read the entire note?" I did. There was a pause on the other end, short but ominous, and Kendra felt her hope plummet for a moment. However, she remained positive. "And what do you think?" she prompted. "I do not think that would be possible, Miss Clinton." Kendra's heart sank as the oncologist's words hit her like a punch to the gut. She had been hoping against hope that she could secure another loan to cover McKay's next chemo session, but now her worst fears were coming true. "Why?" she asked, her voice as hoarse as ever. "I'm sorry, Miss Clinton," the oncologist said, his voice filled with regret. "But there's simply no more loans available for you. You're already owing a substantial amount, and the hospital can't extend any more credit at this time." Kendra felt her chest tighten with panic. But I need this loan," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "McKay's next chemo session is crucial. He won't survive without it. You know this, Dr. Turner." The oncologist sighed, and Kendra could tell that he genuinely felt sympathy for her. But sympathy and pity would not help her, and it certainly would not pay for McKay's chemotherapy. "I understand your situation, Miss Clinton, but there's nothing more I can do. We've already stretched our resources to the limit, and we can't risk financial instability for the hospital." Tears welled up in Kendra's eyes as she struggled to process the devastating news. She had been counting on this loan to keep McKay's treatment going, to give him the